Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second of the Town Hall talks. We have today Jess Johnston, who's the Town Hall Heritage Project Manager with the Lowestoft Town Hall project. Over to you, Jess, if you want to expand more about your background and the.
Oh, thank you. I've been really fortunate to be involved in the Town Hall project for since 2020. So very much a it's a building that's very dear to my heart. Although I obviously have sort of lived in Lowestoft for a long time, I've sort of become very acquainted with all the different elements of the building. My background's in heritage conservation, and I also work for the National Trust as well as a freelance heritage consultant. Um, Enough about me. Let's talk about the town hall that we're here to talk about today.
Hmm.
Can you hear me okay, John?
Yeah, that's fine.
Is the sound okay?
Yeah, it's
That's
fine.
great.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
anyone has any issues with sound or tech, you've got the chat function. And I will just turn my audio and video off.
Great. I'd like to start today's talk by expressing my immense gratitude to David Butcher and to Ivan Bunn for sharing their knowledge of the history of the town hall building and the site, which they have gleaned through their decades worth of research into the wider studies of Lowestoft's history. Since the Town Hall project's inception, they, as well as other local historians, have been so generous in sharing their knowledge and time. This talk shares David and Ivan's research, the investigations into the fabric of the building undertaken as part of the current redevelopment project and recorded in the Conservation Management Plan compiled by Alan Baxter, and the Design and Access Statement by HAT Projects. Also, the Archaeological Trial Trents investigation undertaken by Britannia Archaeology and People's Memories of the Building, which has been have been shared with the project over the past 4 years. For those of you who are not familiar with the Lowestoft Town Hall, it's situated between Mariner Street and Compass Street off High Street. And we can see this wonderful picture of the building here, although unfortunately with the windows boarded up. The listing states the two-story town hall is in the Italianate style with a plinth and corner pilaster strips with long recessed panels of gold brick. You can see that here, this sort of lovely yellow colour. And moulded stone string courses to both floors. So we can see that along here. And there's a lovely sort of detail of a Tudor rose, which I'll refer to later as well. It's also grade two. Um, and then on the main entrance, you can see that you can just about see it in the picture. There's these double leafed um, sort of capitals to stone capitals to the top of the door frame, and it bears the initials V and R for Victoria, and then the town hall there as well, um, in the keystone arch. Um, we know that there's been a building on the town hall site since at least the 14th century. The building is the embodiment of civic pride, and the site encapsulates the following themes, many of which are also played out in other town hall sites throughout the country. The first theme, democracy, the evolution of local government from the decline in manorial control in the later medieval period to the establishment of Lowestoft Borough Council in the 1890s, to the borough being subsumed into Waveney District Council in 1974, and then more recently, the establishment of Lowestoft Town Council in 2017. The second theme is conflict. The site played host to many key events in Lowestoft's history. Its bell is made from the brasses of St Margaret's Church, which were taken down by Cromwell's men and tolled the curfew bell. The third theme, renewal. Buildings were adapted, demolished, and rebuilt as the needs of the town changed and developed over the centuries. The Town Hall redevelopment project is just the latest example of this. When talking about the early history of the site, we need to remember that earlier buildings were on a smaller footprint than that of the present day town hall. To illustrate this, you can see on this plan here, compiled by Ivan Bunn, of the 1841 tithe map, the town hall is indicated by plot number 490. It is this part of the site that you need to think about when we refer to these earlier buildings. David Butcher has written extensively on the relocation of the town away from St Margaret's Church, sort of over this way, towards the sea, with the establishment of a planned medieval town layout in the first half of the 13th century. The site of the town hall, which can be seen by the red circle on this slide, has been a key one in the development of Lowestoft as civic, business, and religious activity has been carried out there in various buildings. In 1350, a license was granted for a chapel of ease. The chapel of ease was the primary function was to act as the place for the local priests and townspeople during the winter months, when the tracks and footpaths from the town to St Margaret's Parish Church were often difficult to negotiate. They would have mass potentially would be celebrated there, and baptisms and marriages. Funeral services may also have been held there. David suggests that it is perhaps significant that the Compass Street, immediately to the south of the town hall, was originally called Byre Lane. This showing that it was part of the route along which the mortal remains of the town's departed were carried. Adjacent to the chapel was a trading area for grain, known as the Corn Cross. Probably initially an open air space, it was soon housed within a two-story building with an arcaded ground floor market. Following the upheavals of the English Reformation, the chapel was refurbished and put back into use for worship around 1570. Although there was the proviso that neither of the sacraments of baptism or Holy Communion were to be celebrated there. The Market Hall building in front of the chapel, by then known as Town Chamber or Town House, also accommodated the town's free grammar school from 1674. Unfortunately, we do not know what these earlier buildings would have looked like. We do, however, through David's research and through this, which has helped him and also David Butcher to compile the map of 1618, the manor roll indicates that there was a building which was called the Town of Lowestoft holds one tenement called the Ton or Townhouse, with adjoining garden situated south of the previous building. Moving on to one of the key areas of conflict, probably in nationally, not just locally in Lowestoft, is the Civil War. In March 1643, Oliver Cromwell, shown here on the left, visited the town with a force of cavalry and placed the town under an 8 p.m. curfew. He came to intercept a royalist arms shipment and stayed overnight at the Swan Inn, which was located opposite the site of the town hall, but sadly it's no longer there. It's been replaced by subsequent buildings. And then he returned to Cambridge. Cromwell took a number of suspected royalist sympathisers away with him, including James Rue, who was the vicar of the time. A lasting reminder of this visit is the curfew bell, and that's the bell in the town hall to clock tower today. That's on the right-hand side of the slide. On the 12th of June, 1644, Francis Jessops of Beccles visited St Margaret's Church, and had been commissioned from the Puritan Earl of Manchester to remove all superstitious images. He ripped out all the funeral brasses except two from the floor of the church and sold the metal to Josiah Wild, a local merchant, for the sum of 5 shillings. It was later melted down and cast into a bell for John Brent of Norwich and hung in the town chamber to sound the curfew. Rung every evening at 8 p.m. since 1644 until well into the 20th century. And I wonder how many people on the call may remember the curfew bell tolling. Interestingly, the number of strokes rung each evening differed depending on the date. According to an article in the Ringing World, which I presume is a bell ringers magazine of March 1973, the number of strokes rung each evening was the total of the last 2 digits in the current year, plus the number of the day in that particular month. So if the curfew bell was chiming today, it would chime 17 times. So 2 plus 4 for 2024 plus 11 for the day of this month. Whether they chimed it like that when it was initially rung in 1644, I don't know, but that's very much sort of what the tradition was in the 20th century anyway. So alongside the survival of many primary sources, such as the lay subsidy records, manual rolls, like we saw for the 1618, and we're also really fortunate of the survival of images from 18th century antiquarians and also their accounts of the history of Lowestoft. Reverend John Tanner and Edmund Gillingwater being two. And there's also the ink and wash drawings of Richard Powell's and the Isaac Gillingwater collection. These are held by Suffolk Record Office. Richard Powell's ink and wash drawing here, we can see the structures that were on the site before, which were built in 1695 as a replacement for the original medieval ones, which had fallen into serious disrepair. This was rebuilt using funds raised by public subscription from among the townspeople. And apparently the amount raised came to £693, 8 shillings, and 2 3/4 pence. I probably pronounced the pence wrong. And that was according to published accounts, and that's again, Gillingwater tells us this. We can see from this beautiful image, town chamber at the front with the corn trading underneath, and then immediately behind it, the town chapel. At right angles. See that up here, the top 4 windows. Presumably, there may well have been a window in the western elevation, and then also got up here would have been the town chamber for the civic business. Some more illustrations of the building from this time. The building, the dates from 1695. You can see the front elevation of the High Street here. The first floor, we know that there had been a schoolroom and meeting place. I've got some really lovely decorative cornice there, and also the stone coins to the side. They've also got this lovely cupola, and presume that's where the bell would have been hung to. We know that also the building was heated. And there was a weathercock surmounting the whole, as well as there's a dormer window here, and on the previous slide we could see that there was a clock protruding from that too. Corn trading on the town hall site probably lasted until the late 18th century, maybe early 19th century. David Butcher believes that probably this was mainly because agriculture became less important in the town's economy as time went on, and fishing and maritime activity became more and more prominent. This illustration on the right is by Isaac Johnson, circa 1820, and Edmund Gillingwater writes an account of what the town chapel's interior would have been like, which very much makes us believe that this is the sort of accurate picture of what the town's chapel would have looked like. Edmund Gillingwater wasn't particularly impressed with the structure. He calls it an indifferent structure. He describes it here with these deal or pine pews and a desk and pulpit here. And then we've got this gallery on the west and the north and the eastern side, apparently, but we can't see that in the view. And then there's a font in the northeast part of the building here. And this large chandelier here is believed to have been donated by Martin Brown. He was a merchant of Rotterdam. He was a native of Lowestoft who contributed the largest individual sum of money to the rebuilding of the town chamber and the chapel complex in 1698. Now, this building survived until 1860. Just 2 years before it was demolished and replaced by the next phase of the building, which we'll talk about shortly. There's a record of a talk held by John Smith. Now, I've recently revisited the Historic England listing of the town hall, and there's a comment from August this year by Hannah Rose Murray, who records this talk. John Smith was part of a group who made radical and politicized journeys to the British Isles during the 19th century to educate British audiences about slavery, racism, and lynching. They spoke in large cities and small fishing villages across the length and breadth of the British Isles. In their radical, Hannah goes on to say, in their radical anti-slavery and anti-racist lecturing tours across Britain and Ireland in the 19th century, Black freedom fighters like John Smith spoke to millions of people about US enslavement, racism, white supremacy, and British imperialism and global oppression. He sounds like quite an interesting chap, or had a sort of quite a, well, so it was interesting, a very nice life, but he'd experienced enslavement in Virginia, and him and his wife secured their self-liberation by posting themselves in a box to New York. So it's interesting that the town hall was a site for a talk and bringing in these views and about sort of anti-slavery, and that was happening in 1858. Moving on to the next phase of the building on the site of the present day Lowestoft Town Hall, and remembering this is just a small section of what's of the proportion of what's the building that's today, and probably, and also it's another change in the democracy and change in British democracy or local democracy. But in the early 19th century, Lowestoft was governed by a combination of manor court, parish vestry, and improvement commission procedures. The Lowestoft Improvement Act was passed by Parliament in 1854. The Act established a board of commissioners to manage and regulate the town. It stipulated that the commissioners should meet in the town hall, apart from the old town chamber, which was owned by Lowestoft churchwardens. There was no town hall as such. A year later, a committee was established to raise funds for a new town hall. An article in the Ipswich Journal, dated Saturday the 10th March 1860, comments on the opening of the new town hall and states, "It had long been felt that our old town hall was both in appearance and capabilities a thing of the past, and not at all in accordance with our present, to say nothing of the future, position and in standing of a commercial and in standing as a commercial and watering town." So that previous town hall building was demolished in 1859, and it was replaced with a new building designed by John Louth Clement. That's the image of the man on the right of the slide. The building, again, was paid for through public subscriptions and loans. Entrepreneur Samuel Morton Peto donated stained glass windows for the council chamber. And if you want to find out more, Jasmine Allen from the Stained Glass Museum spoke to us last month, and the recording of her talk about the stained glass windows and its history is available on our YouTube account. It has been suggested that the glass may originally have been intended for Peter's own house rather than specifically for the town hall. The Norfolk Chronicle of Saturday, the 9th of April, 1859, gives a description of the plans for the new town hall. It talks about, on the ground floor, there'll be a surveyor's office, waiting room, and reading room. So presumably it's that area there. Hopefully you can see my cursor. And the managers of the public tea, it goes on to say, the managers of public tea meetings will be pleased to hear facilities will be provided for heating water on the premises too. So all the mod cons in this new building. I wonder if there was indoor toilets. Anyway, the hall will consist of a room over the above with cornice ceiling running the whole length from east to west, which with the gallery is computed to hold between 800 and 900 persons. And it then goes on to list the donations and the amount that of different people within the town had given towards the new rebuilding. It's £20 from St Morton Peto. J.H. Gurney Esquire did the same as well. And they hoped that the town hall would be finished by the September next. They also go on to say that the town hall curfew bell would be rehung within this new town hall. But they had found that the bell had been defective in its proportions And so it was deemed necessary to recast it, and it had nearly three-quarters of new metal, or no, maybe not three quarters, but it did have some new metal added to the bell. On Tuesday, March the 6th, 1860, the new town hall was opened. A very long article in Ipswich Journal on the 10th of March recounts the opening celebrations with lots of flowery Victorian description. Now, I'm not going to recount it all here, but here's a flavour which just gives an indication of pride the town had in its new town hall, but also in itself, and how it developed over the past sort of 50 years of the early 19th century. Bear with me, I may need a few breaths after this sentence. We have now the pleasure of recording that this desideratum has, through the personal responsibility, energy, and perseverance of a few leading minds, been accomplished, and that, on the evening of Tuesday last, our greatly needed, ornamental, and commodious new town hall was opened under circumstances so auspicious and gratifying as cannot but deeply imprint the event on the memories of all but who were happy enough to take part in that public demonstration. So part of the celebrations, there was a social tea meeting. They had music, lots of speeches by by the reverends from the different parishes in Lowestoft. They also illuminated the stained glass window. 400 people attended. The speeches talked about using the town hall as a place to cultivate the mind, have lectures, and particularly the library and the reading room being something that they're really proud of too. And the end of the event, they all sang the national anthem. And I'm not going to be asking you all to do that at the end of the talk today. It does also talk about the fact that the magistrates had been housed in the older town hall, but in the circa 1850, a new courthouse, or maybe probably earlier in the 19th century, had been erected for that, because the town hall just didn't have sufficient space or accommodation for it. In that particular article about the opening of the town hall, I really like the fact that it actually names the tradesmen that were involved in the building, and not just Clements, the architect. Very often it's the people that actually built the building that get forgotten, and the architects, the ones that designed it, are the ones that get celebrated. And I just want to sort of share their names now. There was Mr. John Newson. They were the bricklayers. Carpenters and joiners work, Mr. Swatman, he oversaw that. The smith's work was overseen by Mr. Scoils, and the plumbing by Mr. Turner, gas fitting, Mr. Pank, and the beautiful carving of the town arms by Mr. Ptolemy of Belvedere Road, London. I think that's just up there now. Sir Morton Peto didn't attend, but there was much praise for Sir Morton Peto and his gift of the windows. So, as well as monthly council meetings, and they're recorded in the Lowestoft Journal, the building again played host to talks on improving subjects, and there was we see sort of articles in the Lowestoft Journal about concerts and the distribution of prizes. But there was also other places within Lowestoft where entertainment was taking place, like a pub, and there was a public hall and things. So it wasn't just happening in the town hall. I just want to go back to the map, so we can just again refresh our memories of the siting of this particular building. We can just see that it's surrounded by the other urban blocks. We've got Public House there. We know later that this is the Red Line Public House too. And this is the 1884 OS map. And then we're really fortunate there are some surviving photographs of the 1860s version of the town hall building. And we can just sort of see the building poking behind it there. And I just show an internal shot of the council chamber as it is today, and that beautiful stained glass window too. And again, this is a street scene, so we can see from a distance the 1860s version of the town hall, and again the clock tower, which would have been seen sort of quite prominently within the local town. So moving on to the building or, that we see today. Victorian Lowestoft continued to expand at pace, and in 1885, Queen Victoria granted Lowestoft a charter of incorporation, making it full, making it a full borough council governed by a mayor, aldermen, and burgesses. The first elections were held, and the new borough council met in the 1860s version of the town hall on the 9th of November 1885. The charter stated that the corporation should obtain a site within the borough for the purposes of conducting its business. An article in the Lowestoft Journal dated 29th of January 1898 titled, "What shall be done with the town hall?" And it discusses the plans for a building, either a new one or rebuilding the existing building. They decided that the existing building should be altered and added to, and the cost of this would be 3,400. Interestingly, there were people opposed to this and that wanted a brand new town hall building. The article goes on to comment, there were those who were hankering after a palatial pile of municipal buildings. However, the article comments that the main point is that the old historic building is to be retained and the ratepayers are spared an entirely unnecessary expense. So that I found that quite interesting because having visited places sort of with much larger and elaborate town halls, and particularly at this period of in Victorian Britain, where there's bigger industrial towns like Rotherham, Rochdale, Manchester, they had really elaborate Gothic town halls being built. And I find that this is a really interesting insight into Lowestoft and its people at the time, that they were sort of felt that actually that expense wasn't necessary, and they were considerate on the ratepayers and keeping things sort of modest, and very much that's sort of reflected in the architecture of the building that we see. In the 1912 Kelly's Directory gives the figure of £4,000 for rebuilding, although perhaps this higher figure incorporates the costs of the extension along Compass Street and to the north towards Mariner Street. It also describes it as the town hall and municipal offices. So this rebuilding of the town hall coincided with the widening of the High Street and led to much of the demolition of the 1854 building, retaining only the council chamber, which we can just see sort of, the roof of which above the parapet of the 1900 building. And parts of the town hall were rebuilt and extended, reaching along Compass Street to the south. So that's this element here. And that was where if we remember back to that earlier slide, the Red Line Public House was. The new building incorporated the existing council chamber, and we think that also the dado and panelling that's in the council chamber today is presumably of 1900, because it looks like it was designed to fit this reduced hall. If you look at the town hall today, from Mariner Street further up the High Street, you can look back and see the blocked-in window openings related to the lost part of the hall. The designer for this phase of the building rebuild was the borough engineer, George Henry Hamby. He finished the buildings in this municipal Italianate style. And again, we can see sort of I'd just like to point out the lovely sort of stone string courses and the floral details there. So going back to another grand reopening of the town hall, the Lowestoft Journal recounts the opening, and it talks about the building that the councillors used in the interim whilst they were waiting for the town hall to be rebuilt. And this was the YMCA hall, in which they comment on the coldness. And there was much jubilation that the new building was ready. They say the heated discussion so common to Lowestoft Town Council, that seems like some similarities that we have today, did not reduce the attacks of the shivers. So even the heat of the discourse couldn't stop the coldness in the sort of temporary building. And there's some similarities today in the fact that the Lowestoft Town Council are in their temporary building in Hamilton House until the town hall is redeveloped and reopened. The article in the Lowestoft Journal also gives us a nice account of the internal features of the building. A nice broad staircase has been constructed with a roomy landing, and it was a great improvement on the pokey provisions of the four times. And again, this talks about the ambitions to extend the hall into the garden to the north, which you can just see in that image there. There was the garden there, and somebody facetiously called it Hyde Park Corner, that garden area. We were really fortunate during an open day in October 2022 to receive a copy of this photograph from Christine Baines. She shared this with us. It's the town hall under construction. You can see sort of the large wooden scaffolding poles tied together with probably hempen rope. And this is the corner of Campus Street and the High Street here. And then the council chamber, you can just see the arches of the windows, just the top right-hand corner of the image. Her relative, Lancelot Pearce, which I believe is the gentleman in the top, to the top left of the picture. His name was Lancelot Pearce. But what a fabulous sort of time to have sort of captured the building of this phase of the town hall. Just want to sort of go look back at the maps again. This is the 1905 OS map. It shows, we can see where it says number 74. Again, that's the empty garden space they refer to in the article. We can see a gap on Campus Street between the town hall, and then there's a space, and then there's the new inn there as well. So, really quite a short period space in time before we will then see that the town hall had extended further. And looking at this photograph, this is probably from the turn of the century. I believe it's when the Prince of Wales was proclaimed King Edward VII. We can just see again to the top left-hand corner, top right-hand corner, you've got the new inn, we've got a gap, and then we've got the town hall building. So that's a final piece in that elevation along Campus Street had yet to be built. And that's where it is today. So that's the 1904 section, and then the earlier 1900 sections, and then the new inn to the left. And then this image from the Jack Rose collection again is another early image, image from the early 20th century, from 1910, and then we can still see that there's the garden space still there. You can see the tram lines, which the road was widened to accommodate. So the building was extended west along Campus Street, which we've just talked about in 1904, and that was closely replicating the host building style. And again in 1912 to 14, with the northward extension onto the Mariner Street. That's this image that we can see here. It's a beautiful architectural plans. Again, they're held in Suffolk Archives, showing the designs for that new northerly extension. And then in 1935, we can just see this area here. The northerly extension incorporated a caretaker's of residential area as well. So this the building that we see today is really, it just provides such important evidence of the form of the layout and functions of the late Victorian building. Um, didn't point it out previously on other sides. The stained glass, the engraved the etched glass of the windows on the different offices would told us which rooms were used for which, and so the civil engineer that had his that had the title on the windows of where his offices were. Um, and then, as I said previously, I mean, this building really today that we see illustrates a key phase in the history of Lowestoft when the fishing industry and other commercial harbour activities and the establishment of the resource facilities brought a period of growth and prosperity, which allowed the local council to effectively rebuild their town hall on 2 occasions in 50 years. And I just wanted to show another picture that I've found. This one on the right, that's from the Historic England Archive, circa 1950. And obviously, the building that we see today, there's been a lot of demolition to the rear of the High Street. But these buildings that we see there, they had been superseded in the 1970s by the expansion of the Waveney District Council anyway. So they were no longer there either. And it's really indicative, that expansion of the site is indicative of the expanding remit of local government during the 20th century too. Now, before we move on to discuss the more recent history of the town hall, I just wanted to take a moment to reflect on the growth of the town of Lowestoft through these maps produced by Ivan Butcher for Darrell Fraser's recently published book, Silver Harvest. Darrell Fraser's book is fascinating historical fiction, which tells the story of the Chapman family. But actually, what I found, it's been a really great way of, it's brought to life all the history that I knew of the town and the images, and gives us such an insight into how the town has developed. And it's been sort of also helped by Ivan's images here. So the key points, these maps illustrate the key points in Lowestoft's history. So we've got 1826, before the harbour had been built. And again, we haven't got much development south of the High Street. It's when we can start to see the Esplanade, Morton Peto's influence on that south side of the river, and the harbour, the expansion of the harbour as well. The gasworks, got the town chamber up here. So that's still the old town chamber with the 1695 origins. And then 1906, we can see that expansion again up to the north side of Lowestoft to the west of the town hall. And then by 1956, again, that's the shape of Lowestoft that we see today. So now moving on to the more sort of social history of the Lowestoft building. And let's talk about conflict again. In 1933, the town hall was the site of a riot or raid. David Butcher's book, Living on the Sea, contains an account of this so-called town hall riot or raid. And in more recent years, Councillor Andy Pearce and Janice Cullum Kirby, who both had relatives involved in the riot stroke raid, have written and talked on the subject too. So I'm only going to sort of touch briefly on that here. But on the 8th of May 1933, I saw the so-called town hall raid or riot. A crowd of around 100 unemployed men, family members, and other supporters marched to the town hall to protest about the withdrawal of the coal relief ticket, which was an entitlement to free coal, and to lobby officials there on the justice of their case. They gathered outside the building and forced entry to it, only to find a body of police waiting inside, and many arrests were made. In David Butcher's book, he had interviewed Ted Pontrill, and his account is written there. Now, I really apologise for my Lowestoft accents. I will try to recount it as best I can. It says, Ted Quantrill said, a bloke outside said to me, "Don't go in there, Ted, that's all laid on. You'll get pinched." But we didn't take no notice. We started banging and shoving against the door. All of a sudden, that give way, and us at the front went flying through. Soon as we got inside, the police closed the doors on us. Some of the blokes got nearly as far as the council chamber upstairs. They broke the balcony doing it. Um, so there again, there's an account of, really quite a sort of interesting event happening in Lowestoft's history, but also it pertains to that sort of wider period of the Depression in our national history too. Now, moving on to sort of more recent conflict, been told by Paul Johnson that the town hall was the site of a Cold War nuclear bunker. He's talked about on his YouTube account about his time as in the Royal Observer Corps, when there were pressed interaction to provide information about sort of potential bombs or things happening that could be dropping on Suffolk. So they were in the basement of the town hall, and there were some seconded scientists from the Ministry of Agriculture. Apparently, this I think it's probably one of the sort of basements underneath the Compass Street side of the 1900 side of the 1904 side of the building. And apparently, every first Sunday of the month, they would go and practice, and there'd be things like the attack warning read from the police and things like that as well. So something we need to sort of investigate a bit further. I talked earlier about how people have shared their memories of the town hall. Most people's memories of paying their rates there, but we were really fortunate to talk to the lady Mary Leach, and she, as a child, used to play hide and seek within the town hall, as she was a friends with the caretaker's daughter. So I sort of just love the idea of somebody. Ooh, me. Two little girls running around. What we also have is the safe door to the strong room, and that's on the inside face of it. It has signatures of people that had worked in the town hall going back to the 1920s, and that's something we are going to be redisplaying in the redeveloped. We are going to be displaying in the redeveloped town hall. And we talking about that most recent history. The building did remain the home of Lowestoft Borough Council until 1974, when the borough was abolished, became part of Waverley District Council. If you look on Google Street View, it goes back to 2009, and you can see the building with much more buildings on the whole of the site, which the town council doesn't own the whole of the site, but sort of going back towards the A47, that's the extent of Waverley District Council's offices at that time. And it also had sort of moved into the Newmarket Inn in the 1970s as well. And then in 2017, when the town council was formed, the town hall was passed on to the building. Was passed on to the town council. So before we sort of move on to sort of the latest renewal of the town hall, let's just look at what remains of the different phases of the buildings today. So this diagram is from the Conservation Management Plan by Alan Baxter Associates, which was undertaken as part of the Town Hall project redevelopment. We can see to the bottom left, this is the new inn, although it says circa 1870s, I'd say that it was actually sort of early to mid 1800s. We've got the 1899 to 1900 parts of the building, the 1904 extension, and the 1912 and 14 extension, and the oldest remaining part of the building is is the council chamber, which was the only part retained from the 1860s town hall. Trial trenches of the site were undertaken in the western courtyard, so you can't quite see it here, but over here, by Britannia Archaeology in May 2023, to help inform the works happening to the town hall, which will start soon. Unfortunately, they did not reveal any features or finds from early periods of the site. They'd identified that, being at the site of the medieval High Street, there was high potential, but unfortunately, no features and finds were encountered. They felt that this is likely due to earlier works carried out in the post-medieval period and 20th century, including hard landscaping and levelling. So pretty much the site had been levelled at various different phases, so very little archaeology remaining. Reviewing the historic maps of the site also show that any evidence of the medieval and early modern buildings, if they remain, will be underneath the extent of the buildings of the 1860 and 1900 phases. So the latest renewal of the town hall, so yet another phase in the site's long history. This is a visualization by Hat Projects, who are the architects for the town hall project. You can see as much of the 1900 phase, the Victorian and Italianate building is being retained and repaired. All the historic features that are within the building, the same will happen to them as well. And what will be in the new town hall? We're very fortunate that the registrars are going to be having their offices there, so people will come to the town hall for civil to register births, deaths, and marriages. There's the town council will move from their temporary offices at Hamilton House back, into the town hall. They've never been able to use it because it hasn't been in condition to be able to do so. There will also be a new hall, which will be able to be used as a community space, an event space. The council chamber will be used for ceremonies and council meetings. Along Compass Street, there'll be a new heritage gallery, and that's going to be celebrating Lowestoft's history, working alongside the local museums. We'll have a lovely garden as well. And then there'll also be things like a cafe, visitor information point as well. I just thought before we end the talk, I'd just share some of these visualizations so that you can see the plans of what it will look like. Beautiful encaustic tiles that are in the main entrance. We can see that's on the left there. Currently, when you go in the front doors of the town hall, you're faced by a blank wall with a radiator on it. And these new plans will open up that doorway into what will become an internal yard, and that will then be able to link through to other parts of the building. The safe door that I talked about earlier, that's going to be a key feature in that yard, and it will be behind. There'll also be a vitrine there where the civic items from the borough council will be on display, and then on the right-hand side will be some of the collection of the Lowestoft porcelain, which the town council owns, but there will still be a very large collection at Lowestoft Museum as well. On the right, we see the plans for the council chamber. Very little will change apart from the colour scheme, and obviously it will be completely refurbished and brought up to date with heating and ventilation and things like that as well. There's just some more images of these, the entertainment space and the rear courtyard. The Heritage Gallery, and this is going to have sort of interactive elements as well as sort of more formal sort of interpretation. You can see we've got some binoculars so that people can see some video footage of the Excelsior out at sea. And then the town council's collection. Some of that is currently in store. Some of it is on display at Lowestoft Museum, but the plans are very much to be able to put some of the collection in the town hall and have it on the walls. The terracotta bust that you see on the left, that's Sir Morton Peto. There is a shelf in the council chamber where he used to reside, and he'll be going back there too. And then alongside the redeveloped town hall, there's a program of activities and events which are overseen by me, but are being delivered by um, John Chamberlain, who's the heritage officer that we saw at the beginning of the talk. So I come to the end of my talk, and only to say that we now of a site that has had a significant amount of change and renewal and seen lots of important events in Lowestoft's history. We're now looking to the future, and we hope that it will have even longer and illustrious use. Great, thank you. Is there any questions?
Thank you very much, Jess.
I'd also just like to say that if anybody's interested in Lowestoft's history, there's lots of great resources online that you can also go to. There's a website called Lowestoft Old and Now, and lots of David Butcher's articles are did on there. Ivan Bunn and Dean Parkin have created a series called High Street Histories, and those are really fascinating and show how the different buildings that have come and gone on the high street too. And then obviously there's lots of historical books that have been written by local not historical books, local books about local history that have been written by authors as well. So lots out there if you want to find out more about Lowestoft's history and the high street.
We have a question in the Q&A. So I've just put the Historic England link in as well to the chat. So there's a question in the question and answer, which is, are any of the photos available?
The photos available in the talk, some of them are from the Jack Rose collection. Um, some of them are online. You'll be able to see them on Lowestoft Old and Now. Ones from the Historic England archive, again, those are available online. You can search for those as well.
There's another question, which is, when do we think the renewal will be completed?
So the aim, the current planned time frame is for it to be in summer 2026. It's been a very long process, but yeah, the work should be beginning in the new year as well on the building. The main contractor has been appointed.
I mean, you mentioned David Butcher and Ivan Bunn, and I was recommended to get the book Living from the Sea by David Butcher, so that arrived the other day, and I've also got Ivan Bunn's book, A Return to Haunted Lowestoft. So I'm looking forward to reading that. Both of those books
Yes.
actually over Christmas. Should be good.
And there's a couple more questions
Right.
that I will try to answer, and if I can't answer them, then I will go to the people that are more likely to answer, as in i.e. David Butcher and Ivan Bunn, and see if they can answer them for us. So Stephen Horn asks, what civic structures existed at the time of the earliest town hall? So I'm wondering if that's the medieval um, um, one that you were talking about. And I think that would I think I would have to refer to David on that side of things, because sort of medieval sort of governance would have been sort of more to do with manorial um, elements rather than structures per se. So let me get to you on and Stephen will perhaps post that as a question on our social media, and we'll answer it on our social media with a question to that. I mean, from my understanding, I mean, not my area of expertise, sort of medieval civic structures, but I wouldn't have thought there would have been as many, because particularly pre-Reformation, you've obviously got the church, and there'd be less sort of civic structures. But anyway, rambling, and I think we just need to refer to David on that. Um, and then Philip Mummery says, what galvanizing effect do you believe the ta new town hall will have on the town? And very much the aim of the project is to be able to sort of galvanize the high street and encourage more people to go to the high street by having the registrars as a key anchor tenant and the town council in the building. That is going to increase footfall. So it's about bringing more people up to the high street. But as well as bringing people to the building, very much the aim of the activity plan is about being able to give people within Lowestoft and further afield the opportunity to learn more. So it's very much similarities to sort of that Victorian ambition as well. But it's about providing people with the opportunities to learn more skills. So we will be having apprenticeship roles as part of the town hall project. We'll have opportunities for local colleges to be able to learn some of the more traditional building skills as well. Yeah, all very positive ambitions to bring a galvanizing effect to this end of the town and Lowestoft more widely.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.